Hey, Mark Colgan here, B2B sales consultant at Yellow O. And in this video, I am aiming to produce the most valuable video on cold email on the interwebs in 2025. So, I give a lot of advice to my clients and people that ask me for help with cold email. And oftentimes, my advice is here's what you should do. Trust me, bro. It's really hard to find data that works across lots of different industries. So when you see reports on benchmarks, that takes into a lot of factors and nuances. So it can be quite hard to find really accurate benchmark data. And then also when you look at sources like Outreach, SalesLoft, HubSpot, any of the big names in Outbound or that to do with Outbound, as soon as some content is on their website about what's working in cold email, it's out of date. So where I go to learn about cold email are places like Eric Nowakowski, which I always butcher his name. Sorry, Eric, if you're watching. Eric puts together a wrapped campaign of, a document of what's worked and what hasn't in 2024. I'll put a link in the comment description of this video for that. Jesse is another guy that I follow, as well as V over at SmartLead as well. And speaking to lots of agency owners who are running outbound for various different companies and campaigns, that's pretty much where I go to. Jesse has taken the GEX wrapped report and created a really nice infographic here, which I now want to go through in even more detail. I'm not sure how long this video will be or how many points I will be going through. I've got no script whatsoever, but I'm just going to add a little bit of context for everything that's on here, or almost everything that's on this cheat sheet. But again, all credit goes to Eric as well as Jesse for putting this together. So let's dive in and start first of all with email deliverability. So inbox setup, Google or Outlook inboxes try not to use SMTPs. Now, the reason why you want to have Google and Outlook is because some of the mailboxes that you'll be sending to are Gmail, other mailboxes are going to be Outlook. Of course, there's other providers as well, but the majority of businesses are either Gmail or Outlook. And the idea is that you want to send an email from your Gmail account to somebody else's Gmail account. This is known as inbox matching, I believe, and SmartLead and Instantly and other tools have this feature depending on the plan that you're on. But the idea is to send your Outlook emails to an Outlook inbox and your Gmail emails to a Gmail inbox as well. 2 inboxes per domain. Why do we want 2 inboxes per domain? So we need to create multiple domains, alternative domains for our outreach to really mitigate the risk of any of our domains being impacted from a bad reputation point of view. So if you're using your primary domain for cold email, you run the risk of people marking that as spam, which has a knock-on effect for the overall reputation of your domain. So if you get too many spam complaints, that could mean that on your main domain, your invoices to your customers don't get sent to them, or your messages to other people or even internally get marked and put in the spam folder. So it's really important to have alternative domains. And then because of the risk of that spam complaint, you don't want to have 20 different mailboxes on each domain. You just want to have 2. So that does mean that you'll need to get more alternative domains. So let's say you've got 5 alternative domains, and then you have 2 mailboxes on each of those domains. So in total, you have 10 mailboxes, but the risk is spread out across those 5 domains, because if a mailbox on a particular domain gets flagged as spam, then that can impact the other mailbox on that domain. But if you've got those 5 domains, it means that it only impacts on the domain level, not the rest of your domains as well. So you're hedging your bets there. You, of course, want to set up your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. There's a lot more tools out there that can help with this. This is something that I always get stuck with, but this is just properly authenticating your email accounts to kind of prove that they're not being used for phishing or for spam. Then you want to warm up your domains for 3 weeks. So that's domains and mailboxes. What this really means is that you are sending emails from these new accounts to other people's emails. Lots of tools like SmartLead and Instantly, they have these warm-up pools of email addresses, and emails just go back and forth to make it look like a human is using this. Back in the day, you used to sign up to newsletters to make it look like a human was using it. And this is all we're trying to do, is just make sure that this domain looks like it's active, or the mailbox looks like it's active, before sending out messaging. So sending tips, 30 to 50 emails per day per inbox. That's great advice. But if it's a brand new mailbox, I recommend starting off with only 10 mails per day. The following week, move to 20. After that, move up to 30 as well. You want to stagger it because it just looks suspicious if this email account has had no emails going out and then all of a sudden it has 50 emails going out per day. Now, when calculating the mails per day, you need to factor in the fact that these include the first email in a sequence, but also the follow-up emails as well. So just factor that in when it comes to your sending limits. What they suggest here is 10-minute delay between emails. So if I've got 10 prospects in a list, the first prospect gets an email at 4 p.m. The next prospect gets an email at 4:10. The following prospect gets an email at 4:20. So there's just a delay because again, we're trying to make it look like a human is sending these messages out. And then use Smart Leader instantly. Great advice in terms of the tools to actually do the sending. Then avoiding spam flags. So validate lists to keep bounce rates low. What we mean by that is to double check the emails to make sure that they are a valid email. One of the biggest reasons for outreach not working is because we're sending emails to bad inboxes or inboxes that don't exist at all. So don't guess the email, only send to valid emails only. And if you can't find a valid email for a prospect that, would be a good lead for you, then consider putting them into a LinkedIn only campaign. Just because we can't find the email doesn't mean that we don't have to, that we can't contact them or even cold call if that's part of your cadence. Avoid spam keywords like free, guarantee. There's lots of words that we shouldn't use. If a quick Google will show you hundreds of different spam words that you can't use, and most of the tools like Smart Lead will have like a spam checker in there. So it will check the message body to see if you've got anything in there that could raise suspicion from the spam filter. And then finally, personalize messages and avoid templates. So this is about making the message unique to the individuals that you're reaching out to. The more unique a message is, the better your chances of getting into the inbox in the first place. So if I sent 1,000 emails that said, hey, Mark, it looks like you might need help with your sales training. Let me know and I can tell you what I can do to help you, which is a terrible example of an email, but that's emails that get sent out. If I sent that same email to 1,000 people, that's going to look very suspicious on an email deliverability point of view. In tools like Smart Lead or Instantly, they do have some general guidance for email deliverability as well, and there's lots of content online. Okay, so list building, another key component of any outbound email campaign. You want to use data sources. So Apollo.io is great for that initial list building, especially if you're looking for companies who are B2B organizations. Clay.com can be very good for building initial lists, but it really comes into its full power when you're looking at enriching that data, which means adding additional data points to the list that you've already built. And then LinkedIn Sales Navigator is perhaps the most accurate database, and pretty much all of the big databases like Apollo, ZoomInfo, pretty much get their data from LinkedIn in one way or the other as well. So starting from LinkedIn Sales Navigator as a source itself can be a great place to start lists. I've actually got another video here, which is a 14 tools in 19 minutes for list building. And around the 45-second mark, I've got different suggestions based on the types of companies that you're trying to find. So maybe give that video a quick check. Then when it comes to finding emails and enriching that data, some of the tools, so Lead Magic is really good at locating emails and also verifying those emails. It does a lot of other things as well, but I mostly use Lead Magic for finding email addresses and verifying whether those emails are valid. Clay, again, is a great tool for adding that additional information. So a classic example of adding additional information might be, let's say you want to know what the company headcount growth is, or let's say you want to know how many job roles they're hiring for a particular department like marketing or HR or sales. You would essentially put the list of companies and their domains into Clay, and then you use Clay and its various integrations and its ability to use AI to do some research to then find that data for you. So you would then see that the company headcount has grown by 9% in the last year, and they've got 12 roles open in marketing. Now, with that data, you can then segment your list to inform what message you want to say, or you can even use that message or use that data point in the message itself. SmartLead is the tool here recommended for integrating the sending platform. So I send all of my email outreach via SmartLead. Very simple to use, and I really enjoy the inbox that they have, the master inbox. So all of those different mailboxes that you're sending emails from, a lot of people think that they have to log into Gmail and Outlook and into those various mailboxes. But if you use a tool like SmartLead, it handles all of that for you. So if an email is sent from mark.colgan@yellowo.com, which is one of my alternative domains, I can see that email come into the inbox and then simply reply to that email from SmartLead. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, when do I actually use my main domain? Well, the goal of a cold email usually is to get a reply, and then within those replies in the back and forth, you're trying to get to booking a meeting. So once somebody has booked a meeting, that's when I would then typically use my primary domain to send them messages. And then Triggerfy is great for social trigger campaigns. I'm due an update to record a new Triggerfy video, but Triggerfy is great for tracking particular keywords or people who are commenting and liking on influencers or competitors' posts, and then building really, really specific lists for you that you can use for your targeting. So some triggers here, social trigger, which is the one I just mentioned, that LinkedIn engagement is the best and has been performing very, very well. It really does depend on what you're selling and who your audience is. The more commercial your audience, or if you're selling sales or marketing tools to people, it's a very good trigger. For other use cases like cybersecurity, then it might not be the best trigger for you. There's a lot of nuance in working out the triggers. New to role or the first time in role, that can be a really good time, because if somebody has just started in a new role, it means that they are more likely to make purchasing decisions and changes to the department that they're working in. So reaching out to them within the first 90 days is a really good time to increase the relevance and likelihood that you'll get a reply. And of course, recent fundraising. So when a company has raised a round of funding, they just need to do things differently to what they've done previously. And oftentimes in their fundraising announcement, they share what their plans are. They might be using the funds to increase the development team, or it might be to fund international expansion. And if your product or service can help with that, then you can use that trigger to reach out and hopefully send a relevant message to them and get a reply. So now let's move on to copywriting. So the 4-step framework here, I think probably one of the most simplest ways of looking at this, which is very good, is start with why you're reaching out now, explain how you can help, show social proof, and provide a clear call to action. In terms of the clear call to action, I recommend that you do not ask people for a 15-minute call or to jump on a demo. What you're really trying to do with your cold emails is to get a reply. So that's known as using a call to action such as an interest-based call to action. So would this be of interest to you at company name? Mark, does that sound interesting? Mark, would you like to find out more? I like to use the first name in a few times in the message, not just at the very top. Why you're reaching out now. So that's it, just really highlighting the fact that you've seen something or there's an observation that you've made. If you haven't got any observations, then perhaps you move straight on to talking about how you've helped other people, which are quite like them. And you can do that via showing social proof. So I've helped an agency increase net new MRR by 295% after I trained their sales reps. So I would want to mention that in my email to prove to people that I know what I'm talking about and other people have trusted me to solve that problem. Key thing here is to keep emails under 100 words. The reason for this is that we're busy and we get a lot of emails, and most people are just scanning through emails to see whether they need to respond or to not. If you send an essay to them and it has too much information, too much buzzwords and jargon, then it's just not going to land with them. They're simply going to skip and ignore because they got more important things to do. So keep the message as short as possible. In terms of value propositions, I think what Jesse has done with a great job here is just highlight the main reasons why companies buy. So companies typically buy to save time, save money, make more money, or reduce risk. So always when you put together your email copy, think about having one of these value props in there. We're going to talk about the structure of an email campaign very shortly, and I'll give a few more examples of how you could use different value props throughout that sequence. And then a couple of things to avoid is hope this email finds you well, or saying things like, I'm just following up on my previous email. Do not send that in your email at all. One, I hope this email finds you well. It's not harmful, it's just a waste of space. You don't really need to say it and you don't really mean it, especially when you've got people enrolled in a large sequence. The I sent you an email 2 weeks ago, or I sent you an email the other day, that just reminds the prospect that they have received an email from you and they either read it and didn't think it was interesting enough to warrant a reply, or they have missed it and now you're making them feel a little bit guilty that they're not on top of their inbox. So just avoid putting yourself in that situation. Definitely avoid the corporate jargon like ROI, streamline, optimize, efficiency. The way that I like to tell my clients to think about the copy is to write your emails as if you are in a pub describing the problem to a friend after a beer or two. I also recommend that my clients think about what are their prospects complaining about in their job, what are their frustrations and their challenges when they're in a pub with a mate. You can tell I'm from the UK, a pub culture is very important. If that doesn't resonate with you, a bar or just an informal setting. So like, how would they be complaining about their role, not their manager or the company, but like what things they're trying to do to a friend. So that's the advice on copywriting there. Moving on to campaign strategy. Okay, so the sequence structure is really important. Gone are the days of sending 7, 8 emails in a row over a period of 4 weeks. Now the recommendation is to use 3 to 4 emails per sequence maximum. In the first email, introduce the offer with research. So we'll talk about lead magnets in just a second. Then we'll talk about providing more context. So that's in your second email. Then in your third email, you want to try a new value proposition or a new benefit. So if I just scroll back up to here. So here we've got the save time, save money, make more money, reduce risk. My first email might have said something about making more money. My second email might land on a different problem or challenge, which is about reducing risk as well. So you can see that there's emails 1. The second email is threaded, so that's in reply to the first email. And then in your third email, you're creating a new thread. Now, a lot of people ask why we may want to do this is what happens depending on the mailbox that they're using. So Outlook, Gmail, Apple Mail, whatever it may be, sometimes the nested or threaded emails kind of get lost in the inbox. So you want to send a new email, which is unrelated to the previous emails as well. So that's the kind of the logic behind that. In terms of effective approaches, poke the bear, so ask about pain points. This is my default go-to. I always lean on the pain and challenges because then it's very easy for me to move to the solution as well as moving on to sharing social proof about how we overcome that challenge with that solution. Chunking, so breaking down your offer. This is when you offer multiple things or there's a few big parts of one offer. Lead magnets, so offer value for free. Lead magnets can be quite challenging because we really need to think about what is of value to the prospect that we're reaching out to. The way that I recommend that my clients think through this is what problems are they trying to solve and can you solve the first step of that problem? So my example, let's say I'm helping with closing more deals. Then one part of closing more deals would be the sales process. And a part of the sales process would be how easy is it to book a call with the company? Or what emails are being sent before the discovery call is happening? What email reminders are being sent before the discovery call happens? So maybe a lead magnet that I could create, if that's the theme and angle that I'm trying to send emails about, would be here. Would you like me to send you some templates of pre-discovery call messages that you can send to prospects? Or is it a pre-discovery call prep list or checklist for an AE to actually go through? Now, with lead magnets, don't make the mistake of sending the actual lead magnet, which is usually via a link or a PDF in that email. What you want to do is ask for permission in order for you to send it to them. The first reason why we don't want to send the link is 1, it can trigger the spam filter. So any external links are a no-no for most spam filters. The second is you want to ask permission and not assume. Nobody likes to be forced to do something. And then thirdly, when you think about it, when is the last time that you've actually clicked on a link from a stranger in an email? I think we've all fallen into the trap of phishing, spam, and phishing attacks. And we're very suspicious of these external emails, links, especially from somebody who we don't know. So that's what I recommend, that you ask if you'd like for you to send it across to them in your email, and then you can send the link. There's no problem once you've got that permission. So a couple of tips on using AI effectively. research prospects manually first. So what they mean by this is rather than trying to automate the entire research process, what they're advocating here, and as do I, is to research a prospect and try and write an email which, if you could spend an unlimited amount of time producing, you do the research to find out the different angles, the hooks, the message that you want to use. And then once you have that final version of the email, work out what things you could automate and how you could use AI. And that's really where Clay comes in to help you. I like this point. I think this should be bold. Use AI for specific sentences or parts of a sentence, not the entire email. It's very, very hard, even in March 2025, to find good AI cold email writers. I think Twain and their latest version of their product is probably the best on the market at the moment. But still, I recommend that you use AI for just a little bit of the email, not the full email. And then feed AI real data about the company as well. So sometimes you have a requirement or you have an idea that it would be amazing if you could say, I want to send an email to people who use Excel internally, but it's very, very hard to find that information. So just make sure that you're using real data about the company or data that can be possible to be found. And then key insights here, the social trigger was the most effective in 2024. That's that engagement. AI generated personalization works when done right. What we're talking about here is that you could have the most personalized message, but if the message is not relevant, or if the offer is not relevant to the individual that you're sending it to, they're never going to reply. So you could actually spend a lot of time getting an AI prompt ready, or you may even be doing manual personalization. But if you were trying to sell me car insurance, I don't own a car. No matter how personalized or amazing your message is, I'm never going to buy from you. And I'm probably not going to reply to you because getting car insurance is not a priority in my life right now, as I don't own a car because where I live, I don't need one. So keep that in mind. Don't over index on personalization. I like to add personalization into emails when it's a sweetener to the email. Sometimes in the PS, if I find something which is relevant that I could personalize, but never force that personalization. And then a few people to follow here. Max is awesome at Triggerfy. He shares a lot of behind the scenes of the automations. Then you've got Nick over at Leadbird. He runs a pay-per-performance email agency, so he sends a lot of emails. You've got V at SmartLead. He shares a lot of insights across the different campaigns that his clients or people are using. They have so much data that they share kind of anecdotally about what's working and what isn't. You've also got Jesse as well, who is just the kind of mad scientist when it comes to outbound campaigns and AI automation. And of course, Eric N. I won't butcher his name again. Okay, so let's have a look here about benchmarks and sample templates. So benchmarks can be really tricky again. Like, what's the average reply rate for cold email? And it depends. It depends on your industry, how many people you're sending emails out to, what your offer is, how saturated that market might be. So it's really hard to have benchmarks, but in general, an average campaign is, you're doing okay if you get one positive response for every 350 prospects that you've sent that message to. So that's doing okay. So you can really see it's still a volume game when email. Of course, the more personalized or the more relevant your message can be, and the more tight your segment and your list building is, the likelihood is that you'll get more positive responses. The maximum realistic response rate is 30% at any one time. I've not really seen many campaigns get 30% plus. I mean, I ran a campaign and got 60% positive reply rate, but I was offering a free beer for people in Tampa when I was visiting the other year. So like, that is a completely skewed benchmark because it's very different to cold email. And then also free or valuable offers get higher response rates, which kind of makes sense. Oh yeah, best performing emails, you're first and second in the sequence. That's why we don't send 7 emails anymore. If you don't get a reply on the first or the second, but perhaps you might get on the third, it just drops off a cliff in terms of the likelihood of getting any more replies, because either your emails are not going into the inbox or it's just not relevant for that person. One thing that I forgot to share before is the campaign plan, which I work through with all of my clients. This is how I plan out an individual campaign for one ICP segment and one persona within that campaign. I also think about the triggers, the hypothesis of like, why would somebody be interested in replying right now? What problems are they facing? What's going to motivate them to act? The research requirements, so that's the list building requirements. And then here I put the number one problem, the implication or risk of not solving that problem, and then also the solution or the proof that that's of solving that problem. And then I repeat that for the second pain point as well. And then I then, with pretty much this information here and my understanding of the ideal client profile and persona, I'm able to create my 3 to 4 emails. Typically, my fourth email is not the traditional breakup email where it says, oh, did you fall down a well or did you get eaten by a bear? I usually say something along the lines of, I appreciate you're busy right now, or that this is not a priority. If things change, I'll be here to help. And in the meantime, here's a link. So I do send a link, but usually in my last email, it's kind of like a Hail Mary approach. Here's a link to a resource which might help you. But anyway, I'll be here if things change. That's typically how I approach my final email. So we're going to go quick rapid fire through these last few here. So first of all, subject lines, keep it short, 2 to 3 words. I find lowercase is much better. And the reason you're doing that is because you want to make it look like a colleague has sent that email. You don't want to make it look like a blog post or a marketing email. So I like to use informal and quite casual text in my subject lines. And then also, so an example would be question for first name. Now, the problem with this, as I mentioned with the outreach and Salesloft and HubSpot, like the 12 subject lines to use right now, is when everybody starts using those subject lines, they become less effective. So a subject line, if I'm writing a message which is about closing more deals, my subject line might be close rates ... or close rates ? It's related to the problem. It's a little bit intriguing, and hopefully it generates the open of the they open the email to read the message, because that's the point of the subject line. Don't trick people into opening emails. I used to joke and say that the best performing subject line for opens is "I've got your wife." Because lots of people are going to open it, but they're going to be very pissed off that you've sent that email and you've tricked them into open it. So don't do anything like that. Personalization, so reference specific company details. So that, like I mentioned before, about headcount growth, other people within the company, something that was mentioned in recent news or posts, especially if they've got a CEO who is on podcasts and she may have said something about one of the challenges that they're facing right now. That's a great thing to bring in, but again, quite hard to do at scale. And then you can always fall back to referencing their role or experience. So if you're reaching out to a head of marketing at a B2B tech company, then you probably have a pretty good understanding, or you should, because of your ICP and buyer persona detail knowledge, of what their challenge is, what their experience is likely to be. So referencing their role or experience can be a good fallback option. Follow-ups, we've pretty much mentioned this before. Add context to email number 1. In your second email, add context to email number 1. Third email, new value prop, new thread, and then space follow-ups 3 to 5 days apart. Typically, I send email 1 on day 0. Then 2 days later is the second email. Then I usually give it like a 6 or 7 days for the third email, and then usually 4 days for the fourth email. Is there a science behind that? No, I just feel that that's an appropriately spaced out without sending too many emails at once. Then lead magnets offer something that costs you money. This is great if you are a lead gen agency or a list building company where you can do so. But what I think this also could be is if you're a video production company and there is a step in your onboarding process when you work with a new client that you go through, that is something that could potentially cost you money. So it might be like how to think about a brief for a video or how to conduct an interview for customer testimonials. Now, if you're reaching out because you can help people with customer testimonials, then why not share those questions that they could ask their own customers to get those testimonials? At the end of the day, that is just the first step or 10% of solving the problem, but you want to position yourself as the expert so they actually go, this is hard, maybe we should work with you. Free lists of targeted prospects, again, great if you're in the lead gen space, not very helpful if you're not in the lead gen space. And then competitor analysis. This is a really good one because competitor analysis or industry analysis. So everybody in every role is always thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing my job properly? And what are other people doing right now? So for a client of mine, they worked on a piece of content which analyzed 100 different beauty brands, paid ads across Meta and Google. And they looked at the creative, they looked at the call to action, they looked at the captions, the length, And from analyzing 100 brands, they took 3 ads each for each 100. So that's 300 different ads. They were able to summarize some key points of what were the clear trends and what were the bad performing ads as well. Now, that insight is insanely valuable to other people who are also promoting, or even those 100 brands themselves, because they don't know what those other 99 companies that they're effectively competing for market share are doing. So that's a really, really valuable piece of content. And they're reaching out with a message saying, hey, I've analyzed 300 ads across 100 beauty brands. Would you be interested in me sharing the findings? I think you'll find that finding number 5 is probably the most compelling. They're teasing a little bit as to what's going to be in that copy. And then testing, really important that you test different value propositions. You also test different triggers and lists. If it's not working, change the offer as well. That testing is just a small little box in this whole infographic, but there is a lot more that can be said about testing. So this is 30 minutes. That's 30 minutes of, I don't know, about 40 different tips when it comes to cold email. There is so much more nuance to it. So if you have any questions at all and you're here after 40 minutes, 30 minutes, I really appreciate you sticking with me. And if you have any questions at all, reach out to me at mark@yellowo.co.uk, or reach out to Jesse, or reach out to Eric. All right, thank you so much. Speak to you soon. Bye.